Well, the House is expected to vote tomorrow on the Senate's latest coronavirus aid package. President Trump says he will support the bill if passed. The $484 billion package focuses on replenishing the Paycheck Protection Program. That program was supposed to help small businesses, but it quickly ran out of money. The new bill also provides $75 billion for hospitals, $25 billion for increased testing. Meridith McGraw joins me now from Washington. She's a White House reporter for Politico. So Meridith, is the White House concerned this go-round that the funding could also potentially run out as quickly as it did last time?
Well, the White House and lawmakers were under intense pressure to pass a bill to replenish this Paycheck Protection Program. And as you showed there earlier, it's expected to be worth over $300 billion. And one of the biggest complaints for the program, of course, was that certain businesses weren't able to access the money, and that the money went through so quickly. It only took 13 days for that the PPP program to run dry. So while the White House was the president said he's going to sign this bill, and they seemed enthusiastic about making sure this goes through, there has been some concerns that this might not be enough, and especially considering how quickly the funds dried up before.
Does the White House see this fifth round of aid being necessary? What else do they believe really needs funding?
Well, one of the things that's been brought up by President Trump is perhaps another phase of funding that specifically focuses on infrastructure. And that's a lot of the things that you've heard the president talk about out on the campaign trail, things like improving roads and bridges. And then Secretary Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, said that if they were going to do any additional spending packages, it might also look at things like payroll tax relief, and a focus on broadband construction, which has been a big focus for the administration. But at the same time that the White House has been talking about potentially another round of all of this, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell seemed to be pumping the brakes on that yesterday when he said that they're not going to be considering anything like that, at least until Congress comes back. And he also said that we've already pumped $2.2 trillion into trying to save the economy with all of this. And one of the things that Republican lawmakers and this White House are going to have to think about is how much more debt are we willing to go into as this virus goes on.
You know, the president also announced measures to limit immigration for 60 days. It only applies to those seeking green cards. It doesn't apply to temporary foreign workers. Here's how the president justified the move last night.
We want to protect our U.S. workers, and I think as we move forward, we will become more and more protective of them. This pause on new immigration will also help to conserve vital medical resources for American citizens. A short break from new immigration, depending on the time we're talking about, will protect the solvency of our healthcare system and provide relief to jobless Americans.
Meridith, why now? Why is the president making this decision to do this now and focus on the economic impact of immigration?
The president, like you said, is prioritizing the economy with all of this. The president's tweet about suspending all immigration took his own officials by surprise. They did not see this coming, and this seems to be sort of another case of the president maybe getting ahead of his skis as the order was still being drafted late last night. And while the president said he's going to be signing this executive order today, it does stop short of a lot of the things that he had promised. And while it does suspend green cards, it doesn't suspend visas for other people hoping to come here and help out farms. We're talking about farm labor, landscapers, things like that. And that's hundreds of thousands of jobs that makes up a huge part of the United States immigration. And a lot of conservative allies of the president said that this didn't go far enough. But with this order, the president seems to be siding with businesses and specifically farmers who say that they are going to need those resources in order the labor resources in order to make their businesses work.
The president, we know, met yesterday with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The governor believes in continuing to move forward with this lockdown. You have some reporting that some allies of the president actually have advice for him on how to deal with opening up businesses. What did they say to you?
Well, this past Friday, a group of Trump allies, conservative leaders, actually wrote a letter to the Department of Justice saying that they felt a lot of these restrictions at the state and local level were infringing upon their civil liberties. And they specifically pointed to cases like churches who had drive-in services, people being turned away. In one instance, a surfer was called off the beach even though he was alone. And they said those are examples of the state infringing on their civil liberties. And they specifically called on President Trump and the Department of Justice to file lawsuits against state and local leaders if they think that things have been taken too far. And it's something that the president has expressed sympathy for. He had a call with faith leaders on Friday, and while he didn't explicitly bring up some of these state orders, he did say that he would be looking into these examples that were apparently raised on the call and then brought up in this letter. And Attorney General Bill Barr has even said yesterday that the Justice Department is going to be looking into that and that they could sue and bring litigation against local governments that they think have taken things too far throughout all of this. And of course, the president has seemed to be stirring the pot in some ways when he's been tweeting for certain states to, quote, liberate and things like that, which seems to be encouraging protesters who say that they want some of these social distancing guidelines and things like that to be eased up so that the economy can open back up.
Meridith McGraw with Politico. Thank you, Meridith, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.